Hello and welcome to a four-man weave plus Marco edition of the Dig 2 NBA podcast. My name is Dante and joining me today is Alessio White Howard Conte, Lucas the Masso Mumba Petritus, and Marco the Burgers Are Better Holden Jeffries, and Sean Carroll. Welcome, boys.
Dante, long time no see.
Yeah, it has been a minute. This is the second leg of the home and home that we've had on your feed, the Immortal JVG NBA Tribute Show, and our feed, which obviously, if you're listening to this, you have found. And boys, fucking NBA's back.
Sure is. I like how you didn't say basketball's back. I had a
proper NBA's back. James Harden's not playing defense. It's like everything is how it was supposed to be.
Go on, have your WNBA point.
No, it's fine. I had a canned response about the WNBA finals being 2 days ago, but you did the right thing, and I'd just like to give you props there.
Simp.
Yeah, Dante, you're right. Everything's right in the world. There are vajazzled basketballs getting held up by crusty old men in a neighborhood that Michael B. Jordan's driving through. Just the way we expected this season to start. There's a 75 best players of all time list that for some weird reason the NBA is getting into, which we're definitely not going to get into because it's just a can of worms that Marco said we're not going to open. But we'll kick it off with the Bucks and the Nets game. Probably one of Steve Nash's finest coaching games with plenty of question marks and plenty of talking points as Steve Nash's Nets lost 104 to 127 to the Bucks. And Lucas, what are you taking away from this game?
I found myself getting pretty bored. The first thing I thought very early on that I didn't think all of last season, but then ended up happening. The Bucks looked like champions in this game. And they really just looked fucking good. Like their offense looked like it was flowing. I don't know what happened to Mike Budenholzer in the last couple of months, but their offense looked so connected. And I think the best thing that they did today was play everyone, and not play everyone meaningless minutes, but play everyone and kind of involve them in the offense. Let them get a touch. Because I'm looking at the wrong box score here. But if like Yorios Kalaitzakis works out for a little bit, Justin Robinson works out for a little bit, Jordan Nwora works out for a little bit, that could be handy come the end of the season. But like looking at the Nets play, man, I think you got to save as much of LaMarcus Aldridge's 15 minutes as you can for the playoffs because they looked old. Like they looked really old. And I think just as a TV show, this game went on for way too long.
Yeah, I think it wasn't even that the Bucks looked like champions, which you're completely right about, but they looked better. They looked like their additions this offseason had actually been meaningful and that their losses had sort of been, negligible. Like you weren't begging for PJ Tucker to be out there pretending to guard Kevin Durant because he's just going to do whatever whoever's on him. Grayson Allen had a pretty inefficient game, but like he looked like he slotted, like you were saying, Lucas, like he's slotted right into their really flowy offense. Jordan Nwora as well, who obviously, played no meaningful minutes last season. Just looked like he knew exactly what he was doing, in a Milwaukee jersey. So I think like probably a team not undervalued, not discounted, but from that first performance, it looks like this isn't just going to be like, okay, can you beat the Bucks of last year? It's like, can you beat an even improved version of the Bucks from last year?
Yeah, I don't want to be that guy, but I'm just about to be that guy. But like this is the blueprint for how Giannis becomes a 3-time MVP and how the Bucks really show off that they are the team. And like it's so good for the Bucks because obviously they are just hard capped to no end with the contracts that they have. So if you can get meaningful like regular season minutes from Jordan Nwora, Mamu, so that guy, like Pat Connaughton's there. Obviously, we had no Dante DiVincenzo. We have no Bobby Portis in this game as well, and like they didn't look bad. They just looked fine. It's like these are worse role players, but they're still just playing minutes. And like it's the regular season, you just need to fill minutes. And if Giannis is going to get 32, 14, 7, 2 blocks, and you're just going to win games anyway.
In half is 2. Yeah.
I think on the Nets side, I don't think the Claxton and Griffin starting lineup is the starting lineup that you'll see in the 7-game series. I think that's the game 1 starting lineup where it's like, let's go through the series. Let's go through the season, sorry. Just like throw the numbers out there. Like Aldridge is going to play, Griffin's going to play, Claxton's going to play, blah, blah, blah. But when you get to the end of the year, it'll have to be some form of Griffin, Durant, Harden, Mills, Harris. And against the Bucks, that's hard because who's matching up with Lopez? Who's matching up with Giannis? But, the off player is like going to be matching up with Lopez. So I think obviously it's game 1, so I'm not going to like freak out about Brooklyn just getting pummeled by a team with heaps of continuity, especially since Harden missed or was injured for all of the meaningful games at the end of last year, and Mills played, significant minutes today. He hadn't played there before, so like I won't overreact. But yeah, like the Bucks, I have said a million times, just were so shit considering how talented their team are. And today it's like, oh my God, the talented team actually played good. Thank God. So yeah, interesting.
I kind of want to overreact on the Nets though, because James Harden was really shit. And not only was he shit, like he wasn't making shots, but I thought he looked a little bit passive at times. And then physically, man looked thick, which is not necessarily like out of the question, like it's not like last season he was in amazing shape in camp and at the start of the season, but last season he was doing what Ben Simmons is trying to do now, which is just like rock up, be shit, and then they're like, yeah, fuck it, let's just get rid of this guy. Surely like this season you're in a place where you're going to win, you're going to compete for a chip, you're the NBA favorite, you would, being a professional athlete, you'd be in shape. And it's not the sort of thing like where like Luka comes in out of shape or Jokic comes in out of shape and still puts up like monster numbers, because he literally wasn't even trying on on D. Like he wasn't moving, his arms were down by his side. Like that lack of effort combined with the fact that you looked fat, out of shape, and you weren't hitting any shots, it won't matter for the playoffs because he'll have played his way into shape. But in terms of like the regular season, like Kyrie's gone, and outside of their 2 stars, there's no other creators that are like genuine dyed in the wool, like, above average NBA players. Patty Mills being the other one, but you don't want to be Patty Mills playing 30 minutes and being your primary ball handler. So I think it actually is maybe a bit concerning, and that's something that I'm going to have my eyes on through the first like 5 or 10 games of the season. Like, does he sort it out? Because if not, then the ceiling on this team for the first half of the season is substantially lower.
It did seem like a bit of a weird vibe. Just the Nets, like, yeah, Harden. Like there were no headlines about him coming. I mean, in the off season, but it did seem like he was mad at someone. Kyrie, we obviously know, but that was probably not a Nets based. That wasn't Nets based reasons. And I mean, yeah, there was some cool Nicholas Claxton alley oops this game, and a couple of hezzy pull up Jimbos from KD, but other than like 10, 15 possessions. The vibe was off. It was a bit whack.
Yeah, and I don't like the coaching decision of like the Nicholas Claxton alley-oops. Like they look nice, they worked a little bit, but you're going up against, Giannis, who's one of the best help defense rim protectors in the league, if not the, and Brook Lopez, who, he's 7 foot and he can get his arms up in the way. And that happened so often where they were just cutting off, Harden's lob to Claxton. And I get the idea of like putting him and Blake out there to sort of combat, the 2 very functional bigs that the Bucks have. Like they're one of the few teams who can have 2 guys above 6'11" on the floor, and it, their D doesn't sort of crumble around them. But yeah, just the pedigree of those 2 players doesn't really match up against those other 2 very well. On the James Harden thing, just going back to that for a second. I mean, come on, America just came out of a fucking like 18 months of coronavirus hell. You can't blame the guy for spending his entire offseason in the trap. Like, like you said, there were no Harden headlines, but I'm pretty sure every single time a rapper was spotted at a strip club, James Harden was also there. Like, I'm not even. I don't think I'm even exaggerating. Yeah. But like, you know, and I was talking to my housemate Ned about this today. Like, obviously Harden, you know, I think I'm getting a bit too deep into this, but obviously Harden, he doesn't take drugs, you know, like NBA players of that level can't afford to take drugs. So what does he do in the strip club when, you know, young thugs fucking spinning out in the corner on lean? He's eating chicken wings. That's why he's put on that extra weight. And I think in 20 games, you know, he's gotten the excitement of being able to go to the strip club out of the system, and he'll be completely fine.
In 20 games, they have Atlanta, and we all know what happened.
Man, they get up in the A. But yeah, it's good to know Ned's got his ear to the ground in terms of James Harden's social life. But going back to the basketball point, like I don't think we should overreact because, yeah, after 21 games from now, after they finish with Atlanta, they're just going to get right back into mid-season form. And like Nicholas Claxton isn't the answer against Giannis and Brook Lopez, but they play Charlotte in game 3. And I'm sure Nicholas Claxton will look beautiful against Charlotte. I'm sure he might even have like a cheeky 20-10. 18 of those 20 will be either offensive rebounds or a lob off James Harden's penetration. But like, I'm not overreacting. It's game 1. There is plenty of things to figure out. And like their best defensive player, Bruce Brown, was strapped to the bench until garbage time at the end, played 4 minutes or 4 minutes.
Hurt?
No, I think he was fully healthy. He just looked really grumpy on the sidelines. I don't know whether like this goes back to Steve Nash. Like, what are you really doing here? This is a versatile defender who proved he could do it in the playoffs in 7 games against the Bucks in a series that they, you know, had every right to win. And you're just not playing him on opening night.
I kind of think that potentially, you know, 4 minutes is a bit rogue, but I don't think it's a great matchup for him because obviously by starting the Twin Towers and, you know, having like Claxton, Blake, Aldridge as like your kind of big rotation, and, you know, like we've mentioned before, the Bucks are one of the bigger teams at the 4 and the 5 with Giannis and Lopez. Like Bruce Brown's best role is as the, you know, as like the small ball 5, like, you know, cutting to the rim and finishing. Like, I mean, he's good in that role, but I can tell you how Bruce Brown catching the ball and trying to finish over Lopez on the short roll is going to end. So I kind of get the theory behind going big and saying we're going to, like, you know, match up with size. The practicality of it is just that, like, you don't want to be playing Blake and LaMarcus Aldridge all that much because they're not actually that good. So the theory is fine, you know, I think from Steve Nash decision making, but yeah, the practicality of the roster is like a little bit limited when they do decide that they need to go big because they kind of can't with quality.
Well, one other thing that, you know, this is a massive overreaction after one game, but Bruce Brown couldn't agree, whether it be him or the Nets, couldn't agree on a contract extension with the Nets this offseason and signed a 1-year qualifying offer, who he'll be unrestricted at the end of the year. So just something to watch if he's completely alienated out of the rotation and he's going to be a free agent at the end of the year.
They went big and got out-rebounded by 10 whole rebounds. I think all 17 of Giannis's rebounds were off his own miss. The highlight package was like God. Giannis missing a layup, and then it was who was the player? Moses Malone, that they had to like make a rule for because he kept rebounding himself.
Oh yeah.
That's what it looked like. It was bonkers. And like, yes, all right, he is Giannis, but I think like you're already getting tanked in the rebounding department. This is obviously future sight, not for right now, but you're probably just best tanking rebounds. If your big guys are already getting pummeled, you're probably not really gaining anything there.
Well, but you can't really tank rebounds though, because you kind of need rebounds. Like if you get out rebounded by 25, you will lose the game.
Yeah.
Every time.
I would counter that, you know, you're not playing Blake and Claxton to defend these guys at the rim, right? Like they're not going to be able to do that. But like they need to fucking box them out. They need to be stronger or as strong as Giannis and Lopez. I know you can't be stronger than Giannis. That's, you know, that's neither here nor there. But you need to actually it's not the size, it's the strength to actually be able to, you know, stop these guys getting
It's the
offensive
wizard that
rebounds
uses
over
it.
It's not in. It's not in here. It's in here.
Yeah, it's not,
That's for
you know,
that one's for the Patreon viewers.
it's not really a cerebral skill. Like it's more of a, you know, brute force, brute talent thing.
Hence why Giannis got so many.
That's racist.
Ding, and that was
It
Giannis
is.
ringing his bell. Has anyone got any further points? I do. Paul Millsap, 5 minutes. James Johnson, 21. Marcus Aldridge, 16 minutes. Flip them around. In fact, just funnel 30 minutes to Paul Millsap. Does anyone else have any other points on this game?
I think
Yeah,
they just wanted Johnson. They just wanted Johnson to match up with Giannis.
He does look good in terms of facial hair, but he didn't look good in the matchup.
I would say probably the only, maybe not the only, but this positive that stands out. Did Blake look like he was a bit more Sorry, for the Nets. Did Blake look a little more energetic than he did in seasons prior? Because he did seem like he was getting up a bit more.
Yeah, that
Um,
dunk.
Yeah, and there was another one he missed, but I mean, you know,
He looked energetic, and then he did a Ben Simmons tribute and passed up an open dunk under the rim.
I reckon that's what gets known as the Ben Simmons.
Oh,
That is what's known
100%.
as the Ben Simmons.
I just did it. Like, I also just wanted to give a shout out to Patty Mills. I think we should all just
Oh
revere
my
him
God.
a little bit. 7 of 7 from 3 is just ridiculous. And I think he should keep coming off the bench. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think he should start because he's just so good in that role. It's what he's done his whole career. You know, you can put Brown at the 2 if you have to. Put fucking Carter
Javon
at the
Carter,
2.
yeah.
Javon Carter. I mean, yeah, Javon Carter's like a solid player in himself. But yeah, Patty Mills looks so good in that role, especially when he's with one of Harden or KD on the floor. And he can just, because, you know, we know from his time with the Boomers at the Olympics, what he can do when he's just got that little bit of creation for him and doesn't have to be the primary facilitator on the floor.
Yeah, I think his pick for 6th would be. It looks good if he keeps coming off the bench.
Yeah,
He looked really comfortable today, and I mean, like, he's
not that
gonna
any
go
of us
7
picked him.
All of us half picked him. I mean, obviously, he's not going to go 7 for 7 every game, 7 for 7 from 3, but he looked comfortable and he looked fucking sure of himself in every shot. But I mean, you know, we said it once, we said it 1,000 times. KD's toes behind that line without saying any of this.
I'm sure they still sign free agents even if they win the series. Should we move on to the second game of opening night, the important game? And as a Warriors fan, it's been rough the past couple of years, and I feel bad having to leave Alessio in
Someone
the dirt
pull the
because
violin out.
we were both down in the dumps in the NBA's doldrums, and LSU and actually Dante, you guys know full well what it's like being in the Pacific Division. It's rough. It's a dog eat dog world out there. But to start the season as a Warriors fan with such optimism, I mean, in years past, I've gone, maybe this is Kai Bowman's year. Hey, maybe Kelly Oubre Jr. won't actually maybe he'll make a shot. But this year, I am just brimming with confidence, and it's so nice to just be able to flick on Warriors basketball and be like, we can win every night now. What jumps out to you, Marco? What's the first thing you see when you're watching this game?
Well, I think I'll leave some of the Warriors soliloquizing to you because you'll do it so much better than I will. But I feel like everything that was right and wrong about the Lakers was on display here. You know, everything that we sort of predicted in preseason, you know, not just us personally, but the greater basketball commentary. That's the third time I've said that over the last 2
I was
episodes. You know, AD looks great at the 5. He looks like he's back in his flow, back in full form. He hit some ridiculous shots. Perhaps the most ridiculous was that one with about 45 seconds left, that turnaround 3-pointer. It didn't mean anything, but the Warriors were defending the fuck out of him. So it was still an impressive shot. And, you know, LeBron is still LeBron, doing LeBron things. And those role players are sort of worth their salt, you know? Like, I don't think there was really one of those old guys who I was like, oh God, he's really creating an issue for his team. They certainly look slow at times, but they have enough fast players on the floor at any given time to sort of run the fast break and get up the other end quickly. Now, the problem is this Russell Westbrook cat.
He's the old guy that's causing problems.
Yeah. He's not very good. And he just looked completely lost out there. Like he just looked like he had no idea what Frank Vogel's offensive game plan was on any given possession. And I reckon you could just Soviet Union era scrub him out of that game, and it would barely make a difference. As I think Lucas said earlier, it could potentially make them better. But yeah, the lineups, I think there's a lineup at the end of the second quarter that looked like a bit of an end game lineup that didn't have Westbrook in it. It was Rondo, LeBron, Melo, AD, and I can't remember if it was Monk or someone else. And yeah, they looked so sharp. Like the ball movement was so good. You sort of trusted anyone to hit a 3-pointer. Even Rondo, who might be a worse 3-point shooter than Russ in the regular season on any given day. But yeah, then Russ comes on and the game just fucking comes to a standstill. So I think they're just going to keep running into that problem unless he hits his groove halfway through the season.
For some numbers for Russ, he was 4 of 13 from the field. 0 of 4 from 3. He didn't get to the line, and he was minus 23 in 35 minutes.
That 4 of 13 as well. One of them was a dunk at the end of the game. So scratch that off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, like we've been talking about the last couple of days. Yesterday's episode on JVG, whether someone's field goal percentage is going to start with a 3 or a 4. But Russ is seriously asking the question: is it going to start with a 2 or a 3, which is not where you would want your $47 million point guard to be. Getting my Fox Sports headline on your $240 million megastar. You'd want him to be not like he was the worst player in the game. He was the worst player in any role, like role player or starter or star. He was terrible, and he probably will hit his groove at some point and start racking out the 20, 15, and 10s, but. There were points in this game where I was like, this is potentially what the Lakers might be like, with LeBron and AD really doing like a lot of the bulk of the offensive heavy lifting, and Russ just being a bit more passive and facilitating. But he was just bad. He's going to need to hit that run of form sooner or later. And obviously we're game one, we're not overreacting. But considering that we have been very critical of him on this podcast, and that I think if you're looking at his career trajectory since KD left, you would probably quantify it as like maybe empty calories. And now that the calories are gone, what's left?
And the blueprint is or was supposed to be that Westbrook carries the regular season, and then LeBron and AD have the inverse. And if we get LeBron and AD carrying the regular season, then they're going to be cooked, and they'll have no shot at the end of the year. The one thing that came up for me after watching the game and the highlights is Anthony Davis shoots like this maybe 5 times a year, and he's already burnt one of those games. He's now got 100 to go, and he has to divvy up the other 4 good shooting games within those. So they're in serious trouble because he burnt one of those games in a loss. And secondly, this game was like the tale of the acquired talent, and the acquired talent for the Lakers was Westbrook, and he sucked. And for the Warriors, it was Nemanja Bjelica.
The athletic David West.
I am so happy that he played well, and I can't believe that Spoelstra didn't play him last year. And if the trend continues this way, he's going to absolutely pop off this year as the pseudo 6th man for the Warriors.
Was he the best Warrior today?
Yeah. He was honestly David Lee with more than half a brain, and like I said before, he's the athletic David West.
What's this swipe at David Lee's intellectual capacity here?
Just being able to pass out of the low post. But it's so I said this in our group chat, it's so refreshing to have a guy who's like Draymond, where you're not going to wow your defender, you're a little bit pudgy, your whole thing is that you're a good passer, cerebral, if you will, and he's sitting in there. And we all saw that one play where we all reacted to it because the shot clock was running down. You can see none of the options were working out. Like, Jordan Poole and Steph had already run around. They were just getting neutered. And then he's sitting there, and instead of Draymond just putting up some god-awful shot, which is like, I love everything about Draymond, but he does take some bad shots when he's forced to. Bielitsa was just like, well, I'm European. I'm going to try and just flagrantly foul this dude in front of me. He may be LeBron, and I might elbow him in the face. The ref didn't call it. He gets his shot. And it's like, oh, that's right. He's actually got like a little bit of post moves. He won the MVP in Europe. And his whole thing was being like Nikola Jokic of, I'm not even going to guess his team. And it's just so nice that, like, yeah, like you said, Aless, we've always seen this dude and been like, oh, he's more than just a 3-point shooter. Like, he's actually somebody. And now he's in Steve Kerr's system where he's forced to create when Steph Curry's out. And I'm really excited for the next 81 games.
He's the perfect warrior. He can do he was doing literally everything for us. When Fox was off the floor, the offense would run through him. He can beat the man off the dribble. He can shoot step back threes. He can catch and shoot threes. He has a little post game. He's got a little inside game. Like, oh my God, I miss him so much.
15, 11, and 4 with 1 turnover and plus 20 on the game.
Yeah, and I think this is the other reason that it's so good you have Iggy back as well, is like, I think, we love Draymond, obviously revolutionary player, blah, blah, but he can turn into a bit of a black hole on offense. And, sometimes when I think of Iguodala, I think of, situational defender. That's basically all he's good at. But you're so happy with Iggy taking like 9 shots, whereas you're not very happy with Draymond taking maybe 3. And so, so refreshing to see him in a Warriors uniform, hitting threes, just for no reason, charging into the key and getting a layup. Just those little things that you don't get from Draymond, and you're not trading that much in terms of like playmaking and facilitating and defense in the other direction.
What do you reckon, Lucas?
Do the Lakers win today if they have Kuzma instead of Westbrook? Because I think the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Healed instead of Westbrook.
Sorry? Who
They have healed instead of Westbrook. Because then they have KCP as well.
If they have
They win the
Caruso instead of Westbrook.
Yeah, oh my God, anyone. Plug anyone.
Yeah, I think Marco, you said it. This game did show a lot of what the Lakers look like when they're good, and they look really good when they're good. And I'm so glad Melo had a good game. I foresee him having a really good season. And yeah, LeBron looked really good today. And that was also fun because I feel like it was kind of tough to be a fan of LeBron last year. He looked slow and he looked tired, but today he looked very, very refreshed. On the Warriors side of things, you guys, Steph shot 23.8% and got a triple double. But yeah, Steph shot 23.8% on 21 shots. Man, I think you guys are going to win the ring. I know, and it's not based on this game, but this game did show a lot. Like with the best point guard of all time having a really bad game by his standards, you guys pulled out a win on a team that most people are calling the favorites. And obviously Westbrook shit the bed, but you guys look really good. Yeah, Iggy looks great in a Warriors uniform. Next player up, fucking Nemanja Bjelica only has to be the 4th best player on this team, and no, maybe the 6th best player on this team. Fucking, it's a pool party. Pack your pods. Yeah, this whole roster looks so good, and then you got the perfect center for 20 minutes a game in Kevon Looney. Was my favorite Warrior a few years ago, but you guys look really good. And, I will leave the more specific anecdotes to you, but this was a really, really fun game to watch, and the Warriors look really good. And I don't know if you guys know this, but Klay Thompson still hasn't come back yet.
Yeah, their second best player comes back in 3 months.
All right.
Yeah.
Can I just, Sean, before I give the floor to you, this is just such a great example of the Sean Carroll experience of being a basketball fan. Because you gave this emotional speech about 20 minutes ago about how you can really empathize with me and Aless. Your team was in the dungeons of the NBA and the dungeons of the Pacific Division for 2 years, and you really got to see what it's like on the other side. I'd just point out that one of those like 2 dungeon years, you were the 8 seed. So it's arguably, arguably closer to the penthouse than the dungeon. And now, after 1 game of the new season, you've got Loose pumping your tires, telling you that you're going to win the ring. What an absolute
I thought this preseason. I did think this preseason.
Yeah,
and
well,
also
no, it's not a I think it's a fine take, but it's just like Sean is the beneficiary of it. And now that I'm thinking about it, you're obviously secretly a Nuggets fan, and in one of the seasons that the Warriors were like in the dungeon, the 8 seed season, your Nuggets won 50 games and Jokic won the MVP. So it's like, bro, like before you claimed kinship with, you know, me and Les, who are suffering severe vitamin D deficiency but never seeing the NBA sun, you know, check your privilege.
by the way, I'm a Wizards fan and Mark is a Pelicans fan. Like, talk about in the dungeon.
Not even
The
touching
only
that.
person that can't say this is fucking Sean Carroll, who was a fan of the greatest team of all time
I
2
just-
weeks ago.
None of you can say this. Sorry, Mark. I gotta jump in. And none of you can say this. The Wall Beal team was second round, almost finals. The Pelicans had that Davis year, and now they've got Zion. The Suns, Dante I can empathize with, or he can empathize with me, because prior to the bubble, the post bubble Suns, no one saw coming. So last year was like completely out of nowhere, you know, to an extent. And I'm sitting here like nothing has happened literally ever. And then in Sean's 2 down years, or the 1.5 down years, the turnaround was always coming. This was always coming. The Warriors were always going to be a top 5 team.
What if Steph Curry really broke his hand?
What if? So many what ifs, Sean.
Yeah, in the down years, Steph Curry and Klay Thompson were still on the roster, and Draymond Green.
Sorry, Marco, I cut you off.
No, that's all right. I was just going to say that I think Sean's tongue was probably firmly planted in his cheek for that take earlier.
yeah. Thanks, Marco. Might have been.
But,
And some other disclaimer: I did go for the Warriors in 2013, just before they signed Andre
Yeah,
Iguodala,
like, no one
and I
actually-
don't
no
go
one
for the
can-
Denver Nuggets.
No one can verify that that's when you started going for the Warriors. And I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit suspicious.
It's been quite
I've
well
got mates from
documented.
school.
It's been quite well documented on these podcasts, mainly through me, that you did start being a fan in 2016-17. We still don't know exactly the day.
He also started following the Nuggets pre-Jokic MVP.
yeah, conspiracy.
That's strange because I met Lucas in 2020, so it's just puzzling. Back to basketball. The big thing about Steph Curry, and the reason why we were the 8 seed last year, is that Steph Curry is an incredible basketball player and deserved to be top 3 in MVP. But when he sat, we were absolute dog water. It was putrid basketball, and like that is just that's just what happens when you say, all right, Damian Lee, like you are our main creator off the bench. And then I said it today earlier, because Steph Curry always checks in at the 6.5 minute mark in the 4th quarter. He'll finish off the whole entire 3rd, and obviously he misses time in the 2nd and the 1st as well. And in that first half, or first like little bit less than a half of the 4th quarter, I saw so many leads just evaporate this past season. And Steph he'll check out up 10 points, and then he'll just sit there, rest, just looking at just the work stacking up in front of him, all the stuff he has to do as soon as he checks back in. And he's incredible. And like, I think I just checked, he was like plus 33 plus 15 per 100 possessions, according to Cleaning the Glass, which was 2nd in the league. And it's just like, he comes in, he pulls some absolute crap out of his butt and wins the game, but sometimes he didn't. And what I really liked about this one is that I was a little bit cautious heading into the season, being like, oh, okay, so you've got Gary Payton. Is he going to be like the point guard coming off the bench? Because obviously we tried Brad Wanamaker last year, and Brad Wanamaker turned out not to be a basketball player, which I was kind of shocked at. And then it's like, well, who's going to be like taking care of the 2nd unit when Steph Curry's not out there? And there's 3 answers now, because you've got Jordan Poole. Obviously, Steve Kerr loves staggering his superstars. So if you've got Jordan Poole in the minutes that Steph isn't playing, and we saw today that Jordan Poole played the first half of the 4th quarter and then sat for the 2nd half, which a little bit puzzling. Maybe if the game was closer, he might have checked in with the final 2 or 3 minutes, but you know, he at least played the first half. And then with Jordan Poole, if let's say he can't get his shot off or he can't get open, you've got Andre Iguodala, who, as we know, can just sit there. He puts the ball right below his sort of his rib cage, just sitting there ready to fling like the most perfect pass ever. And then if Nemanja Bjelica is a post distributor and just dude who can just get the ball in the right place at the right time. Did you guys see where he had the ball down in one of the low posts, dribbled out of there, and then was like, oh, maybe I'll go for a layup. So he took one Euro step. Anthony Davis is there, and then just flung it out perfectly to Jordan Poole, who was just sitting there waiting for the three. So you've got these three creators who are clearly like on a string. And Steph Curry said after a game that the chemistry is amazing. We just need to get better and get more repetitions. All this beautiful chemistry is flanked by Moses Moody, who should be a good three-point shooter, and Otto Porter Jr., who is a good three-point shooter. I'm not going to go as far and say after this game that I think they're title contenders, because I don't think they are. But I mean, I want to see how Klay Thompson comes back. But I feel good.
You're going to have the best year. It's going to be such a good year.
Maybe the Kings will as well.
Yeah, definitely. I've got my Otto Porter take, and it's not my take, it's Reggie Miller's take. This is what Reggie Miller said when Otto Porter checked in.
Oh, God.
The Warriors picked up Otto Porter for his offense and defense. Yep. Thanks, Reg. That is why NBA teams sign basketball players. Thanks, man.
I've got a Moses Moody take, and my Moses Moody take is that he's going to be really good. And I've probably never been more impressed by a 1 of 3 2-point performance in 5 minutes. But there are a couple of players where I was like, all you've heard about the last like 5 years, 6 years with this Warriors team is system, especially last year with, like Kelly Oubre, like, he can't play the system. Like, we need people who are able to make decisions on the fly, yada, yada. That's why Bjelica works so well. Exactly the anecdote that you just gave, Sean, that like he can, make those decisions on the fly and keep the ball moving. Moody had a couple of like ad hoc pick and rolls, like short pick and rolls, like that started at the elbow, where he just made the perfect read and passed it out to a wide open jump shooter. And I was really impressed. And I was like, he's got good wiggle with the ball in his hands. He's clearly already making good decisions. And I think that bodes really well for him, that there's not maybe as much of a learning curve coming, because he kind of already has that level of familiarity with the decisions that he's being asked to make, which, knowing, what Steve Kerr wants, that would be a significant barrier to playing time if he didn't have that familiarity with those, the next move after the play breaks down. So I think the fact that he's already showing glimpses of that, even though it was only 5 minutes, I think he's going to be good, and I think he might be, a useful contributor throughout the season. Like, even as a rookie, rather than like, big picture.
Does anyone have any final points on the Warriors before we move on to Mick Simmons?
Yeah, I did want to just say that my Warriors for the ring take is also like my Embiid for MVP take, under the condition that they're in the driver's seat to trade for a great player at the trade deadline. There's so many pieces, and I just see them pulling a trade. I think that Steph's done too much, Klay's done too much, Draymond's done too much to not have one last dance. But yeah, to not swing for a ring one last time, and I think they do it. And Steph looks like he's still in his prime. Klay doesn't have to be that good, and Klay was a really good player, and I think he'll come back and scale up maybe 80% of old Klay, but that's a fucking great basketball player. And then Draymond's on the best or worst team. He's getting 7, 7, and 7. And yeah, I think that's what my Warriors for the ring take comes with that condition.
And the roster's just so deep with players you like and trust and who have value. I feel like last season I just like look at a Warriors box score and be like, who the fuck is that?
That's one Toscano Anderson.
And we love him. We love him for it. But even Andrew Wiggins. I honestly don't mind Andrew Wiggins. I think when Klay comes back and he's just been completely supplanted in the team, and he comes off the bench for 16 minutes until he gets traded, he hits 35% from three. He hits 50% from the field. He grabs a couple of boards. He's, there on defense. He's hardly such a problem when he's not the second option on your team anymore.
Yeah, he's quite the black hole though. We saw so many swing moments, and then he's just put his head right down. It's like, that's Anthony Davis in front of you, and LeBron's behind him. Maybe another swing.
Again, he hit 50% of his shots today, so if it works 50% of the time.
Yeah. All right, well, that seems like a good place to leave it. We're going to take a quick break, and after the break, we're going to talk about everyone's least favorite Australian basketball player. And no, it's not Andrew Bogut. Back after this.
We were over the moon when we first heard that the NBA was going to be televised on Australian free-to-air TV in the 2019-20 season. It didn't exactly go swimmingly, with the nasty cough halting the season and games getting cancelled left, right and centre, but it was a huge step and an exciting one for basketball fans all across the country.
Better yet, it wasn't a commercial channel cashing in on some basketball nerds like us. It was SBS, one of our public broadcasters. Unfortunately, the NBA wasn't the only thing SBS was pushing last season. They also ran advertisements from Sportsbet, Ladbrokes, Bet365, BetEasy, and Neds, some of the biggest sports betting companies in Australia.
In a one step forwards, two steps backwards move, SBS has dropped the ball here. As a public broadcaster, SBS plays a key role in providing relevant, culturally appropriate health information to local communities. The last thing SBS should be doing is offering a platform for gambling companies during the most financially unstable time in recent memory.
This past year, men aged 18 to 24 made up 79% of new gambling account holders, with increased median spending and frequency of bets. This is the last thing we should be spending our money on, given the financial uncertainty that comes with the pandemic. During COVID lockdowns, wagering companies spent more money on advertising and incentives to gamble, and it worked. SBS needs to hear from viewers that gambling ad revenue isn't worth the harm it causes. Call on the SBS chair, George Savitas, to put community health ahead of gambling revenue by signing the petition at www.endgamblingads.org.au/get-gambling-off-SBS with hyphens in between.
Speaking of the worst Australian at their job, my brother was watching The Project tonight, which don't ask why, but Peter Hallier said that this is just a moment in what will be Ben Simmons' otherwise sensational career. He just needs a change of scenery and he will be back on track. Peter Hallier, I know you're listening. You are the fucking worst at everything you do. You are so bad. When I served you at the cafe that one day, you were a shocking customer. You suck at being a comedian, and the fact that you are commenting on an NBA player's career is absolutely beyond me. So I'm just going to say that Ben Simmons and Peter Hallier are the same in their professions. I don't want to see either of them ever again. I'm over it. Fuck Ben Simmons and fuck Peter Hallier.
Is Peter Hallier Strawny? Is that the right guy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Remember when Strawny was in the AFL All-Stars game and he ran out of energy, then he had the hot dog meter?
Too much detail.
No.
Yeah, you remember Dante. LS? You served him.
Oh man,
Was he ordering hot dogs?
The way he like was having breakfast with his son. It's like they were like they hadn't seen each other for like years. Like, hey son, how's school been? And the son's like, I don't talk to you. I don't even know who you are. Yeah, yeah. I don't even know who you are. I just want a hot chocolate. Like, hot chocolate. Only pussies eat hot chocolate. Drink hot chocolate. Yeah. Whatever.
Putting words in his mouth now, man. I get it. It's the project. It's news and Patreon listeners air quotes. But yeah, Peter Hallier shouldn't be having any comment on the NBA.
Speaking of the basketball commentary,
Yeah,
I don't have him pegged as a member. I don't see him on the Excel spreadsheet.
I didn't know that he was a comedian. In all seriousness, like you can take from that what you will. I did not know that his rise to fame was a condition of him being funny. So
that was his whole thing.
It's the natural shift. You go from stand-up comedy to like an extra on edgy news channel where you're always going.
Yeah, he was the funny guy on Before the Game on Channel 10's like footy pre-Friday night sports show. But it's like, again, quote unquote the funny guy, because seriously, this man is just like
and best-selling children's author as well. You guys should really check out his stuff.
He sells children's authors. What?
The whole point was to get into the Ben Simmons situation, and the report that came out, I believe this morning, if I'm not mistaken, where Simmons attended training camp, or attended a training session at least, and within several hours he was in a poor mental state. He wasn't, practicing, or he wasn't like attending drills. Doc Rivers tried to get him into a defensive drill. He, I'm sure, very politely declined. And then Rivers asked him a second time. He politely declined again, and he subsequently got booted, sent home, and has been suspended 1 game. And I'm sure this is the first of what could be several suspensions for young Ben. What are our takes on the situation?
Oh, just another Aussie larrikin really hard done by the system, like this guy is just
Colder Cannons chewed him up and spat him out.
He's a maverick, and I just think he's being really poorly treated over there. I think you should come home, Ben. In all seriousness, absolutely fuck this guy, and I'll give it to the floor.
I was definitely a Ben Simmons defender at the start, but like, Ben, we are not asking you to re-fuck the atom. We're asking you to shoot a basketball. It's maybe the most important thing about being a basketball player. And I said, we're asking you to make a wide open 3. Dante corrected me and said, we're asking you to take a 3. And to the point it's got, it's like, dude, you got what, 140 left on your deal? At a certain point, I do start to question my initial stance. Yeah, I mean, I understand. Actually, no, I don't. I fucking don't. The whole situation sucks. The whole situation is so smelly. I want to pass it to someone else.
It's an untenable situation to be a Simmons defender, and I'm like you, Lucas. Like I wanted him to succeed. I wanted to see him do well, and I'm like ready to kind of like give him the support. But I just want him to know I'm talking to you, Ben. I know you're listening. Ben and Peter both getting direct conversations here. Ben, you've lost me as a fan, and you're gonna have to live with the consequences of your actions on that front. Like literally, when did the season end? Like 3 months ago. And Sean, you and I had a conversation about the Ben Simmons situation, and I just said he needs to go away, and he needs to have some humility and understand that he's not done growing and evolving as a basketball player. And he clearly just has no interest in interrogating his own role in all of this. That him not shooting from anywhere outside 5 feet might be a factor in the thing that in the decision making of the team to maybe want to explore different options, or maybe why they haven't gone as far as they'd hoped in the playoffs. And how you can be so arrogant as to not even be looking around the league saying other elite players who would do, who's the other elite player who doesn't shoot? Like, is Jimmy Butler the only other like wing size player who doesn't shoot threes? That's one other person, and Jimmy Butler does a whole lot that Ben Simmons doesn't.
And Jimmy Butler can hit a 3 if he needs to. And
Jimmy Butler will take a 3 if the situation.
Yeah, he'll go 1 of 1 in a playoff game, and that'll be enough.
Yeah, like how you can look around the league and not and say to yourself, as he clearly has, like, I bring enough value. I do enough that I don't need to shoot threes or shoot at all to have an impact on the game. Like, dude, like whoever your team is, whoever's in your ear, I'm looking at you, Rich Paul. Get the fuck over yourself. Like, honestly, who does this bloke think he is? It makes me mad.
We didn't even get to this point. Like, we can strip away the jump shot from 3 and the jump shot from 2 outside 10 feet. We got here because he literally couldn't shoot a free throw. Arguably the easiest shot that a player could possibly take in an NBA game, because like at least a layup is contested, but the free throw is like the same every single time, no matter what, right? And we
It's
got
a
here
miss
because
every single time, no matter
yeah,
what.
exactly. I'm telling you, it's identical. They're the same. We're here because he can't even do that. Like, oh my God, if he could shoot 60% from the line, not that I guarantee we wouldn't be here, but I tell you what, the conversation would be different because he would be playing for Portland or he would be playing for, name whatever the other team is. But he can't even do that. And it's like, yeah, you're an arrogant, like, head up ass turd, and your value is tanked to the point where not even Daryl Morey can trade you, at least right now.
I think let's like go even further to I think his mentality and his arrogance in this situation. He won't fucking take part in a defensive training drill. Like let's say worst case scenario, Ben Simmons refuses to get a jump shot. Like he just will not do it. Whatever. He refuses to work on his free throws. Okay, cool. If I'm Ben Simmons, then I'm just going to be working on defense harder and harder than ever. Like if I'm absolutely committed that that's the way that I'm going to play basketball, then I'm doing that. He's not even doing that. He's throwing his hands up in a training session and saying, I didn't even want to take part. So not only have you not fixed the problems that were revealed in the postseason last year, but you're also acting worse than you have in any other season. You're not even trying to tune yourself up to play in an NBA game. So just give up, Ben. Just fucking give up.
My friend Derek sent me an edit today. Shout out to Derek, of the scene in Coach Carter where he slams Timo Cruz up against the wall and he's like, "Get in," and he's like, "No," and it was Ben Simmons and Doc Rivers' face. It was pretty funny. It's pretty funny.
So if you're Ben Simmons and your goal is to get out of Philadelphia, but you still want to get paid for being a human being and still getting paid your contract, like what's the best course of action? Is the best course of action to go into the game, go into training, try your hardest, go to games and either just tank the games and do nothing, try your hardest to bring your value back up, or do what he did now, which is simply say, I don't want to train and just pretty much force a suspension? Like what makes him more likely to get traded? And is it this route?
No, it's not this route. I mean, he's saying like, fucking dude, everyone in the NBA really loves playing basketball and his want to play basketball is not greater than what like what is it? I'm so far removed from the initial like issue. Then what? Respect. It's like, all right, cool, whatever. But disrespect you with this 33 mil.
The issue is him, man. Like the issue is because he didn't take the shots and he didn't score in the fourth quarter of any of those games.
He just has an inability to consider his own role in all of this. And I think that we know NBA players are nothing like us, and we know that they're operating financially in a completely different realm to what any of us will ever know. But the reason why he's back and why he ended his holdout is because he realized he's going to lose heaps and heaps of money, like millions of dollars, in salary. And he ultimately wasn't comfortable with, I think it was going to be up to $8 million that he was going to leave on the table. So he ultimately wasn't comfortable with that. So he reports back. But again, the sheer arrogance that he's displaying, to think that he's just entitled to that money just by rocking up, and he can just come back and not actually do his job and not actually be part of the team and just be a pretty toxic presence in the locker room and on the practice court and still get the 8 mil because they've got no other option. It's like, I just think that's like a bit of an ethically cowardly move. And I think that, it's an interesting conversation, the conversation of how's he going to get out, what's his value, all of these kind of like ancillary conversations going on around. But I think just my big takeaway is that Ben Simmons just seems like such a shit dude. And, I opened up this little comment with saying like they're operating in a completely different plane than they're nothing like us. But like, man, what a prick. Seriously, what an absolute prick. And it's Joel Embiid's, comments today. He's at various points tried to kind of like come out and over the offseason be a bit of a, extend a bit of an olive branch publicly. And he was just like, nah, like, he's his own man. We're not paid to worry about that. We're not paid to babysit him. Like, pretty scathing comments. I think that, like everyone around the league is now kind of aware that, Ben Simmons is like a bit of a, in terms of the moral fiber, the ethical fiber, bad dude.
I've got two final points before we go out for final points, but there was a Jonathan Gavoni pre-draft scout report that was getting floated around in the past 24 hours. That was something like, Ben Simmons, incredible player. He does all this on the court, but off the court, there are some questions about his commitment and the fact that he thinks the world revolves around him, which could lead to issues down the line. Here we are. And my favorite part about this whole saga is that because he's tanking his value so bad, Rebel Sport will eventually be selling his jersey for about $20 to $30. And I own a Kevin Durant jersey that I only spent $12 on. And I would love to add to that collection.
People often cite that Ben Simmons is really worried about looking cool. Ben Simmons, you look like a fucking loser.
You're 6'10" and you dated a Kardashian. Like that's enough to take you through until
Doing
your funeral.
Chris Humphries.
Yeah. You and Chris Humphries, except when Chris Humphries stops dating, I guess he still played basketball. Simmons hasn't really done that yet. Post-dating. Let's put our heads into, this is my exercise today when I was thinking about it. Let's be Rich Paul and Ben Simmons. And it's like, all right, we really want to fuck Philly over. Let's tank our value and let's get traded and let's get them nothing in return. Fuck them. And wherever we go, we'll go. And but also, like, we want to go to the Clippers or the Lakers or the Warriors. Like, they're not trading for you because you're shit. So he's trying to toe the line. Well, in my head, if I'm them and I think this is what they're doing, it's like we're trying to toe the line where it's like we want to fuck the 76ers over and get them nothing of value. But I also want to be traded to a team where I can like win games or play good basketball. And it's like, well, in doing one thing, you're not going to get the other. But then if he comes back and he plays well, he's going to get traded to the Timberwolves or the Blazers, where he's still not going to win enough games anyway. So, like, this is a lose-lose for him. And so, like, would you rather play for the Blazers or play for the, I don't know, whoever trades nothing for him? Like, yeah.
Well, Sean, let's put a hypothetical here, right? Let's say Ben Simmons wakes up tomorrow and he's a completely changed man. He's like, yep, cool. I'm committing to playing in Philly for the time being. I'm going to put my all into it. Maybe he starts taking 1 or 2 threes a game. He's hitting like 17% of them or something. It doesn't really matter. He's taking them. He gets another all-star shout. He's playing out of his skin. Come the trade deadline, do you, as a Warriors fan, trade for Ben Simmons? Wiggins and trash.
I wouldn't do Wiggins and trash. Is Maxey in the deal? No. The only like realistic trade would be with Draymond Green in the deal, but you can't it's probably the right thing to do. If you're on Football Manager, that's probably a brilliant move. But this is real life. Dante's perked up. This is real life.
I pointed at someone in a Zoom call before, but I just pointed at Dante because the way he perked up.
This is real life. The gamer gets the girl. And you can't give up Draymond after all this stuff. So, like, the only way that trade makes sense is to give up Draymond, but you can't trade Draymond unless it's for Giannis. That ship sailed.
Sign the deal then. But I guess my point is, if Ben Simmons goes and plays really good basketball, there's like the slimmest chance that one of the California teams could actually want him. And sorry, I'm not talking about Sacramento, unfortunately.
I don't want him. It's okay.
I think at the start of maybe not the start of this whole charade, but maybe halfway through last season, I think let's use Damian Lillard as the example. Wiggins and stuff for Lillard doesn't work because Damian Lillard is so good. If you can't even name the other players, the other picks, the other pieces, and it's just and stuff, that
CJ Ellaby.
That does not shift the needle for Damian Lillard. halfway through last season, and stuff doesn't shift the needle for Ben Simmons right now, and stuff shifts the needle for Ben Simmons. I think that's what's happened to Ben Simmons in the last year.
Yeah.
All right.
Halfway through last season, Ben Simmons was in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. He was an All-Star, and he was going to be, he was a shoo-in for the All-NBA, and he's like 24 years old. I mean,
I disagree. I don't think he's an All-NBA worthy player.
Well, I mean, he was an
Conversations.
All-NBA player, so
I wasn't conversating with him.
They had a Harden trade. They had
Yeah,
Harden.
it was literally, and Zach Lowe's going on the podcast being like, "That's the trade. It's Ben Simmons for James Harden. That's the trade."
And there was obviously the report that Ben Simmons was literally looking at houses on domain.com. He's looking at houses in Houston. No, obviously not Domain, but he was looking at houses in Houston, and that would have been a brilliant trade.
Half the time we talk about trades in hindsight, and it's like the team that gets the better player wins. Now, I think the only time that hasn't happened is like the Denver and Carmelo, because the stuff that they got from Carmelo ended up becoming the sort of like team that won all these games for the Nuggets, 7 years later, whatever. And then the Knicks did nothing. And so, that might be the one where it doesn't work out. But in all the other star trades, the team that gets the star is the team that wins. And if you're Philadelphia and you get Harden, who is the star, shocking in hindsight.
I don't know if that's if I think that's a bit too blanket, because I mean the Wizards trade with Westbrook and getting, I wouldn't say KCP, Kuzma, or Harrell is better than him. And I feel like we definitely won that trade, especially after today's game.
Westbrook
and I think
isn't a star.
Westbrook is not
okay.
like Paul George or
No,
James
but Westbrook.
Harden
But in
or
the
Carmelo
context of
Anthony.
that argument, though, Westbrook is definitely like the better player in the trade. Like he's the best player involved in the trade.
Yeah. I think that I think that every team can win a trade.
Like, think about it with the Westbrook trade, right? The Lakers traded, you could argue that KCP was their third best player for a new third best player, Russell Westbrook. Obviously, the theoretical golf in talent is there, but, Russell wasn't going to Russell. No one calls him that.
It's Wassel with a W.
He wasn't going to Lakers to be the first or even the second option. Like, he was always going to be the third best player on that team.
Should we move on to the finals predictions just before we wrap up? And just before we do, I wanted to make a joke at the start of this segment, but I'll make it now. But this is Pete Hallier talking on the most recent episode of The Project. Battleships went past Taiwan's South China Sea island. So, Alessia, who have you got to win this year's finals?
That was a deep
Patreon.
cut, Sean. That
was
was
a
a deep
big
cut.
Patreon viewer moment.
God, who have I got? I reckon throughout the course of this Zoom call, my pick has changed maybe 4 times.
It's promising.
I'm gonna stick with the Nets and the Lakers, but I really don't like it.
And who wins that?
The Nets win. Yeah.
I've got to say, I have the same thing, and I know I said the Warriors are going to win the ring, but my gun to my head, I'm going Nets Lakers, but I hate that pick. But the come directly in the pussy pick would be Warriors Bucks. I mean, after today's game, especially if the Bucks, yes.
I think that's just the problem is, again, I have
directly to the pussy.
That was my problem, at least.
Have you got something to tell us, Marco?
So obviously, I had Nets Lakers as well coming into today and this episode. But yeah, we've just watched those two teams lose against potentially the other conference finalist in both situations. So, but then I don't think we should then go and say Bucks Warriors, because it was one day, it was one game. These Lakers and Nets rosters are just so deep and so stacked that they really should be able to pull it together. But yeah, let's keep an eye on it, hey?
So far, Mia Les and Marco have said nothing.
I'll say something. After the Russ Westbrook trade with the Washington Wizards, I said that the Lakers will not win a title, and I do not like where that team's heading. And so I don't actually have them going to the finals. I have the Brooklyn Nets. Fingers crossed that Kyrie Irving plays a basketball game. I have the Brooklyn Nets beating the Phoenix Suns in the finals.
You motherfucker!
Wow. That's huge.
I've got the Suns beating the Bucks in the finals.
Damn.
Oh,
Dante.
nice.
Oh, yeah.
Beautiful.
It's Wilder. It's Wilder versus Fury.
Now, Dante, what's your actual pick?
Stop it, you.
It's a good point, though. Like, I think the West is, I don't want to call it weak, but I think pretty much every quote unquote contender in the West, except for the Lakers and maybe the Suns, is like in that, 2-3 years away from a championship stage. Like the Clippers without Kawhi aren't going to do anything. The Nuggets without Jamal aren't going to do anything. The Warriors, it'll, I think that
coin flip.
Yeah, it's absolutely a coin flip, will be touch and go. And everyone else just isn't good enough yet. So the Suns are a really good shout. And, if there's a Lakers Suns matchup again, they could totally fucking tank it.
It's more than a really good shout. Like, as happy as I am for Sean to have Nemanja Bjelica, I'm so much more happy for Dante because the Suns needed one thing. That's exactly right, Sean. The Suns needed literally one thing, and it was a backup center. They got it, who is good, and he could be the 15th best starter if he played 36 minutes for Charlotte or whatever. Like in a perfect world, obviously that's not the situation.
Are we talking about year 2 Jalen Smith here when we say he could be the 15th best starter? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. But the Suns have every right to just be better this year. They've got an extra year of Paul under their belt. Booker's a year older, Ayton's a year older. Now the Ayton situation, once you put the context in there, that's where it gets a little. Sava might have fucked his own team, but if we take the context away, Bridges got paid, Paul got paid, Booker's already been paid. Everyone's happy. Everyone's a year older. Paid. Everyone's a year better. Ayton got paid in a perfect world. And now you have a backup center. So Phoenix could be the 1 seed because they're deep. And then they could also go all the way because they've already done it.
I'll tell you what, we haven't mentioned the number 1 seed in the West, and we all know why. But I picked the Utah Jazz to win 2 seasons ago, and they've been given 2 perfect situations 2 years in a row now to just grasp it. That is, beat the Nuggets while up 3-1 and just shut the bed, and then beat the Kawhi-less Clippers to go on against the Phoenix Suns team that, that's a much more favorable matchup with Gobert and Ayton. They've been given 2 on the platter chances to make it all the way to the finals. And if they get given, you could see them get given a 3rd on the platter on the way to the finals with one of these injured teams that they might have to face. They could make some noise if every matchup breaks right for Rudy Gobert and he doesn't have to defend in space for 7 straight game series.
But fool me 3 times. Fuck the peace sign.
Yeah. There is a million asterisks. Asterisk I.
In France, they just call it. At the beginning of last season, with about 80% less basketball knowledge as I have now, I said, nah, fuck the Utah Jazz. I'm sick of them. They're never going to go anywhere. They're never going to win a championship. And then they went on to have the best record in the West and do absolutely fucking nothing with it. So I think they're just going to do that until Rudy Gobert dies, basically.
The difference between Phoenix and Utah is that Phoenix beat the teams they were supposed to beat. And I think that's a really good sign for a good team because in my sporting viewing history, there's always the really good team that just plays down to their competition, whether that's like Essendon or you name any team in any sport you've ever watched where it's like this team is so much better, right? Like this team is so much better than who they are facing, but they lose because they don't have the mental capacity to push through that fact and just win on talent. Phoenix did that. They had everything break the right way and they took full advantage of the situation. And now they're as talented, on merit. So, man, big year for the Suns.
I think that's a great point, Alessio. Yeah.
Sorry, Lucas. I was going to say, I think with the direct comparison between the Jazz and the Suns, I don't think the Jazz have any feasible way to get better than they did last year. Both in the regular season, where obviously they were, on pace for 60 plus wins. You can't get much better than that. But in the playoffs, there's no wrinkle that they added that's going to change how teams play them and what their perceived playoff ceiling is. Whereas I think the Suns addressed the backup five, which was, much needed. But it's not inconceivable that Booker and Paul in year 2 is better. Mikal Bridges is obviously still getting better. So is Ayton. So there's, we added Shamet for as much as that's a fucking meme. He might actually end up being good. And, Paul and Booker hunting you in the mid range with Ayton for the lob, and then Bridges and Shamet out on the wings. It's not, it's not bad. So my Suns pick is just I don't know how much longer I'm going to have in this position where my team's good. So I'm just going to ride it. I'm just going to be super fan, Suns in 4, dude, Suns goggles on, for as long as I can. So.
Me too.
My final point on that would be your matchup, Suns Bucks, is that I don't know if the additions you made beat the Bucks. I don't think it was the lack of JaVale McGee that I'm not even being funny or tongue in cheek. I don't think it was the lack of JaVale McGee that lost you that final series.
Oh, it's the presence of Giannis that lost us that final series.
Well, the thing is, who matches up against the Bucks? If it's no teams, that means they're just the best team.
Yeah.
Or at least Giannis is the best player.
Yeah. But I do like that point, Alessio, in terms of beating the teams you should beat, because that shows a lot. That shows you are playing your game, and you're not going to fall into the other team's game and just react to what they do. You need to take a game and win a game. You're not going to win. I mean, you're not going to get to the NBA Finals if you don't play like that. And you're definitely not going to win 4 NBA Finals games if you're not going to have one game where you're just in complete control the entire time.
And look what the thing the Suns did the best in that playoff run was when they put their foot on the throat of a team, they didn't take it off. There were so many games where it was what you can slow down now, you're 25 points up, and they didn't. But that's it. That's the killer instinct that gets you to the finals.
They knew they had to pummel the Lakers, and they did. Yeah. They just beat the shit out of them, and it was so grouse to watch.
Love this chat.
And then Drew Holiday.
How short
that guy.
No, literally, Marco. I swear to God, today Drew Holiday got a steal in the first half, and I was like, "Oh, that's a flashback." And then my friend Nathan, who's also a Suns fan, shout out to Nath. He sent me the Bucks championship video that they made, this little emotional 3-minute video, and it was really good. I was along for the ride, and then at the end they started showing the finals highlights, and that play was in there, and I was just literally found myself Devin Booker actually reaching for the ball as Drew Holiday just took it away. I literally need a content warning on that, please.
Yeah.
Also, it's a full moon, Dante, so
Mercury is in retrograde as well, so it's all fucking happening on the Deep 2 NBA podcast.
I thought you were gonna have an adverse reaction before when Marco was talking about Giannis help side blocking Nick Claxton alley-oops after that Ayton play. I thought there was gonna be a secondary.
Ayton won't be on the team these finals.
all right, hear me out. Ayton for Simmons, who says no?
Yeah.
What a natural conclusion to the podcast.
I had one last thing I'd like to say. It's me and Lucas's 1-year anniversary of making a basketball podcast together tomorrow. So, I'm not going to get lame with it. Not going to say a slur like Lucas did last night. But yeah, thanks for the great year, bud.
Yeah, thank you too, man. And also, our first day, we released an episode with you 3. So thank you. Thank bloody full moon, cyclical.
Yeah. With us for the whole ride.
So we're doing another pod tomorrow. This is so good, guys.
This is actually great.
Yeah. Yeah, this is awesome. Well, This has been episode 126 of the Deep 2 NBA podcast, a 4-man weave plus Marco edition. As you just heard, it's the 1-year anniversary for the JVG NBA tribute show. Just like our podcast, you can find them on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your daily podcasts. Unlike their podcast, we've got a website, so you can go to thedeep2.com. It's that simple, thedeep2.com, spelt out, no spaces in between. To find out,
How do you spell two?
yeah, so the PO box is 063. Yeah, just the usual spiel. If you're still listening, either good night or good morning, and I'll speak to you boys in the near future.
Bye, Sean.
Thanks, guys.
You want to say something, Dante?